Hello everybody, Andy here from Glass Half Dead, a Kill Team channel on the YouTube. So, in case you do not know, we are expecting a balance patch this week. It's probably going to hit Wednesday. That's when they normally hit. Every now and again Tuesday, sometimes Thursdays, but normally Wednesday, as that's the day they like to update the app, it seems. And then if it doesn't come this week, then it's guaranteed next week, because it's definitely hitting in July, essentially. But aside from that, all speculation, but I am expecting it Wednesday, so in 2 days' time. And I've been seeing some crazy ideas on the internet about what should be changed, but I thought I'd give you my top 3 changes that we would like to see. Of course, I'm always giving it from my perspective. I have a very limited perspective, and most of the other people online you'll be seeing talking about these things tend to be talking about the top tier, about at the absolute top of the game, what should be changed. And I think they probably have some very different thoughts to me, although at the same time, I think perhaps there are, unifying thoughts across all of the skill gaps. So with that said, let's get into the craziest thing that I'm seeing online, and I'm going to tell you why people are thinking it, and then why I think it's completely wrong. There you go. So let me shrink myself so that we can see a poll I ran on my channel. Here we go. You see it right here. I saw this questioned in my comments after the Deathwatch preview, and I saw it also posted later on Reddit, so I thought, let's run a poll. Is this just a really small minority thinking this is happening, or is it legit? Do many people think this is happening? So I ask, do you think Marine teams are going to 5 models? 56% said yes, 44% said no, out of 1,500 votes on my chan. So that's cool. That's quite a decent sized, response. 1,500 for my channel at least. So the majority of people think that Marine models are going to be 5 models from now. Marine teams are going to be 5 models from now on. I'm going to tell you why they think that. It's 3 things. Firstly, we have Raveners went to 5 models, so people think, oh, okay, elites have now moved to 5 models. We also have Deathwatch just announced as being a Marine team and 5 models. We also have the Kill Team starter set, which is being released for like bookstores, not us gamers, not us capital G gamers, but for a different market share, basically, in the US and in Germany, or the EU in general, I don't know, but not the UK is all I know there. And it only comes with 5 models each side. It's the same as the Kill Team Star set that you or I would purchase of Angels of Death versus Plague Marines, except instead of getting 7 models, you get 5. And so with those 3 kind of data points combined, they've created a pattern, and some people believe that this was all predetermined and was going to occur later. At this point in time, I suppose. And I'm going to say So in the future, I think that Deathwatch is a specialist team, and that is why that has gone to 5 models. I think that Raveners are likewise a super elite team, and that is why that has gone to 5 models. I think that if we do get an additional, what are they called? Marine team, I think it's going to be 6 models, unless again it is a particularly unique Space Marine team. So, firstly, why are Deathwatch 5 models? We don't know any of their rules, but we do know they seem to be able to take at least 1, maybe 2, maybe even 3 Gravis Armor Marines, and those would be 18 wounds, we can assume, instead of 14 wounds. That is a huge change. That alone would probably put them up to being that. You can take 12 extra wounds. That is an additional Marine, if you want to run it that way, assuming you can run it that way, and there isn't like a swap system that we normally get, a slot system, so you can only take 1 Gravis Marine, or you can only take 1 Phobos Marine. We don't know how it's working, but potentially if it is just totally, as it's kind of implied to be because it's Deathwatch, you can take any of these 11 models. Well, there's an argument that just having an entire Phobos Marine's worth of wounds on the table in addition to what you would normally have is pretty darn useful. So there you go. I want to quickly debunk the Kill Team starter set for the books things as being wrong as well. So I've been one of the main proponents that elite teams are too strong, and I think they should be nerfed. I gave up on that in the last Dataslate, and I said, clearly this is just what GW wants the game to be. Fine. They probably still need to nerf Dueler, but apart from that, fine. This is the game. Cool, I get it. However, some people have speculated, because they agree with me, that elite teams are too strong. And a good way to nerf elite teams could be, as many people said at the start of the game, but it's slowly died down, that taking elite teams from 6 models to 5 models would be a good way to nerf them. Maybe you even want to bump up their wounds a little bit so that you can drop them to 5, but that would be a valid way to nerf elite teams. And then of course we see this starter set only coming with 5 models, we see Deathwatch with only 5 models. The thing is, this was all pitched as existing elite teams are too strong and need to be nerfed. But the thing is, the way GW production works, alongside the way their balanced Dataslate works, very genuinely, whatever changes we're going to get this week, I guarantee you they only thought of like 2 months ago, okay? That's roughly how it, they have a quarterly, every 3 months, they do a balanced Dataslate, so they probably thought about it for a month, and then put it off to the printers, or whatever, the digital printers, and that's the first time they thought, oh, maybe we should change elites from 6 to 5. When it comes to their physical media, we know that it seems to have to be 1.5 to 2 years, maybe even 3 years planned out ahead. So they decided on that book starter set to happen 2 years ago. They decided that, yes, we're going to release a big Kill Team starter set at 7 models, and then a year later, 9 months later, we're going to release a mini starter set for bookstores with 5 models. At that point, Kill Team 2024 hadn't even been released. They had assumed that 6 models was what all the elite teams were going to be. And of course, they do try to balance things as well as they can. So they did not, at that point, presumably, think, oh, maybe we actually need to tone everything down to 5 models. Cool. There you go. As far as I'm concerned, GW is never going to take the existing teams, for the existing elite teams, and make them 5 models. And with that said, I think that's conclusive. If you think otherwise, that they are actually going to remove a model from the currently existing elite teams, let me know. I'd be interested to hear if you actually think that, or if you were thinking more Marine teams going forwards will be 5. Maybe. I also don't think that, but maybe. Anyway, with that said, I would like to give a subscriber-only benefit, and that subscriber-only benefit is a big double hello. Wow, so wholesome. The wholesomeness truly knows no bounds in the world of Glass Half Dead. What is a double hello? Well, it's a pleasantry that's given to you twice, and who wouldn't want a pleasantry given to you twice? Let's talk about the other changes. So, again, I have a very limited view on these things, but I think that there are 3 changes that we can all agree need to occur. I think that the upcoming balanced Dataslate is going to be quite comprehensive, and I think that we're going to get a lot of changes. They're all going to be quite small, but there's a lot that could be tweaked in the game. Right now, because of where we are, let's not talk about why, it's just we can always change things. They've made modifications in the past that haven't seemed to have the uptick or downtick in win rate that they've wanted, so maybe they need to do a second small nudge, or, up or down. Cool. Right, with that said, let's go ahead and take a quick look at the no, we don't really need to look at stats. No, we can. I'm going to give you the first one, which I think we can all agree on. So, I don't know if you've seen it, but I did I don't know where I said this, but one of the absolute worst matchups in the game is Wrecka Krew versus Nemesis Claw on Into the Dark. Nemesis Claw, in case you don't know, have comms jammer, so you can never get +1 to your APL. It used to be within 8, now I think it's within 3 of any of their models. That was an absolute killer for the Wrecka Krew, and it was essentially as close to an unwinnable match as exists in Kill Team. Because the way the Wrecka Krew works, they perform an action, a fight action or a shoot action, and then they get +1 APL, as if it's just a comms. Same gist. But of course, the Nemesis Claw, and it was 8 inches when Wrecka Krew were first introduced, they would stop you from gaining that +1 APL. And so you just don't have the APL. And then on Into the Dark, because one of the things that Wrecka Krew struggles with is opening doors, because you don't have the APL, because you're only 6 models with 2 APL. That kind of sucks. So, you know, Nemesis Claw is still going to be a really rough matchup for Wrecka Krew on Into the Dark. There's no doubt about that. However, the change to Comms Jammer is very useful, but it's still a really tough matchup. But that is, you know, a matchup specific thing, I guess. Anyway, we all have bad matchups in Kill Team. However, one thing that Wrecka Krew has a bad matchup into every team is on Into the Dark, because they just do not have the APL to open as many doors as they need to. Now, this is not to say that Wrecka Krew cannot win on Into the Dark. They can, of course, anything can happen. But you basically have to play a different team. Like, because you no longer have access to your +1 APL, because you are spending your APL to open doors, you basically lose a turn, essentially. And then can you win Wrecka Krew when you're playing 3 turns and they're playing 4? That's the question you have to ask yourself. Cool, fair enough. So with that said, Wrecka Krew need some way to open doors. And of course, we know that we're losing Into the Dark, Gallowfall as a kill zone, but this is doubly important, and why they need it now, because we now know we're getting Tomb World in like 2 months, something like that, 3 months tops. And so they are going to be having the same issue all over again in there. And I assume that opening doors or phasing through walls or whatever it's going to be called is still going to be an issue and will still cost an APL. They clearly decided that, and they said, yeah, we like that. I would be shocked if they took it away from Tomb World. But you never know. If they do take away the APL cost, then fine, cool. But either way, Wrecka Krew need that change now, not 2 months after Tomb World drops, because that will be really bad for you. Really feels bad for them. Right, there you go. That's an easy one. What could they do? There's so many options. There's so many options they can do here. I promote the idea that you just give them, in case you don't know, the Fighter Boy has like break stuff, so you can remove enemy terrain, or you can breach through a wall with them. Just add to that ability that, you know, something like, I don't know, you can open a door. I don't know. There you go, but not for an APL. There you go. Easy fix. Well done, Andy. That was really well put across. Very concise. Cool. And then, you know, so here's the thing. I could do like a 2-hour stream where I tell you every single thing that I think should be changed in Kill Team. I might not know every team overly well, but I could still point at a team and say, yeah, that needs to be fixed. But let me tell you the 2 other things that I think need to be fixed. And when it comes to stats in Kill Team, I think we need to be careful about being too literal over them. We don't really have that many high-ranking tournaments. For example, just this weekend, I saw that a tournament was held and Vespid won, and it was a big tournament. It was like 40 players, which is awesome, right? Absolutely awesome that Vespid managed to win that size event, and it was played by a good player, good at the game player. So that's also awesome. But then it's a 3-round event. And it's like, oh. But as we all know, Swiss pairings don't matter until round 4. So don't get me wrong, it was played by a good player, and it is a team that people generally, underrepresent and underestimate. But it could have been random. At 3 rounds, most people that know how Swiss works and are into the tournament scene agree that 3 rounds doesn't really mean anything. If a tournament isn't 4 rounds, it kind of isn't statistically worthy. And ideally, you would go above that. You really want 5, 6 rounds. Cool, anyway, that's fine. That's fine. But I'm just trying to get across that it's awesome that Vespers get a win under their belt, but everybody else still thinks they suck. And they probably do. Cool, because 3 rounds is random. And unfortunately, the vast majority of Kill Team events are 3-rounders with under 20 players, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But just keep that in mind when you're then looking at stats. Cool. So with that said, let's look at stats. Because while I'm happy to say that most players most tournaments are statistically unworthy, and we shouldn't pay too much literal attention to this. We can look at this for trends, I would say, but not like, Blades of Cain are exactly 55.83% win rate. Therefore, if we can lower their overall win rate by 0.83%, we'll have nailed it, and they'll be in rate. It's like, no, you know, I wouldn't take that too seriously. Very genuinely, with the size of game Kill Team is, and the number of tournaments we have, if we just have a few good players or a few bad players that regularly go to tournaments, you will completely change the stats. Cool. Right, with that said, so things are not overly literal when it comes to stats, but there are two things that have been consistent for the entirety of this edition, and I think it's time we really look at those, and that is two things. It's the top and the bottom. It is the Warpcoven, which is so far ahead of everybody else, and then even worse, it's the Imperial Navy Breachers, which are outrageously behind everybody else. Now look, there are reasons for this, and sure enough, if you change from, this is all tournaments, this is the stats for all tournaments, but if you go to 4 rounds and 20 players plus, right, there you go. So it totally changes now. And where have Warpcoven dropped to? Way down the list, I guess. I can't see them. Imperial Navy Breaches are still way down there, but they've only had 13 games, so it means nothing. So there you go. It's not that they are dominant across every level of game, but when you also consider that almost all, this is only 24 tournaments played. That's really not much over 3 months. So when you then open things back up to every tournament, we got to 254 tournaments, which isn't, you know, it's a bit better. Warpcoven are so outrageously dominant that the fact that these are allowed to be played into us scrubs, us kill team scrubs, I'm never getting to, you know, top tables on 4 rounds. So you know what that means? Apparently neither are Warpcoven, which is crazy. But that means that I'm going to be mid-tables, low tables with the Warpcoven that I literally cannot beat. They have to be changed. And then we get to the Imperial Navy Breaches. Oh, sorry, if you can't tell why, it's because the top players that will do, you know, 4-round tournaments and go to the top tables know how to beat Warpcoven, or perhaps more importantly, specifically pick teams that can beat Warpcoven. But Warpcoven are a brilliant gatekeeper team, because they're just naturally strong and they have lots of shenanigans. Lots of feel-bad shenanigans as well, probably needs to be tweaked, but that's fine. And so if you have not taken the right team, or you just get unlucky matchups, you cannot beat Warpcoven, and that's quite clearly borne out in the stats. We then get the Imperial Navy Breaches. Oh, so what do you change with them? I don't know. There you go. I'm not here to give answers. My answers don't matter. There you go. They're just incredibly strong. I don't even know what you change. Like, they're crazy. Because you don't want to take away their shenanigans, which is really tough, because that's the team. That's the team definition. They are the shenanigan marine team. I don't know. Like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe you have to change some of their, like, dice swapping crap to being once per game and still cost a CP. I don't think GW really wants to touch their data sheets, so they don't want to give them less wounds or anything like that. So I don't know. It's a tough one. I just hope that GW doesn't kind of half-arse it and say, oh, well, we're losing them in September, so who cares? It's like, okay, great. And then we get Imperial Navy Breachers, who are so outrageously low. Now, the Breachers got a buff in the last Dataslate, maybe in the last 2, I can't recall. And it has not helped. I would say, though, that a big thing about why GW, they've come out and said this in the past for Kill Team and for 40k, probably Age of Sigmar too, a big reason why they buff, sometimes they do something called buffing for visibility. Now, we're not talking about line of sight in Kill Team today, but we mean they think that a team is working as intended. However, for some reason, players don't think that, and so the players do not play the team. Obviously, in such a small game, if good players jump on a team, a lot of people will quickly follow suit if those good players get wins and they show like the new tricks and stuff, and it starts to make the rounds on podcasts and Reddits and Facebooks and all that stuff. then you will very quickly see teams go up and down. For example, Hyrotech Circles is the perfect example. They took a nerf in like first, maybe second Dataslate, and they totally fell off the map. They dropped to like 42% win rate. It was crazy. And then somebody, Shane from Command Point, came along and said, oh, actually, guys, these are still good. And just played a different Cryptech and smashed some games out and then put it on his channel, his podcast. And then their win rate shot up again because people were like, oh, I'm going to follow the thought leaders. They've proved it can be done. I don't want to be the thought leader. I want to be the follower. I do not mean that in a negative way, to clarify. A good player has proved it can be done. I want to be a good player too. I am now going to play the way I've been told to play because that is a good thing and I want to win. Hyrotech Circle can win. I'm back on board. Awesome. So it's entirely possible that the Navy Breachers need a buff for visibility. This is something that will make the top players notice the faction again. Also, maybe the Navy Breachers suck. That is also very possible, and with such a low win rate, I have to assume that is actually the case. I'm just explaining buffing for visibility. But you give them a little tweak, not even enough of a tweak to get them to where they need to be win rate wise, but then some of the top players look at them, and of course they have inflated win rate stats because they are better players than other people, and they come along and say, oh look, this is how you run them. This is how they work now. It does the rounds on the podcast, the channels, the Facebooks, the Reddits, the Discords. Suddenly, everybody knows the best way to play this team. And boom, they're back in the game with a highly inflated win rate. For like 3 months, one balance patch, and then they drop down again because something else gets buffed for visibility. Cool, and that's it. So clearly, Navy Breachers need a buff for visibility. I don't even know what they do, man. I can't even tell you what they need a buff for. They're kind of, their thing is that they have attack and defense orders, which means you have to be within a certain area to get rerolls, either defensively or offensively. I suppose make it easier to get those. Your best bet, I think, and I'm somebody that doesn't know, let's be clear, is you just make it easier to stand on those. There you go. So you're allowed to put down 2 in a turn instead of 1. There you go. Cool. It spreads out where the team can be offensive. You don't have to put everything into one area. And there you go. That's fine. They're not a particularly survivable and aggressive team, but in the last balance patch, I know that they got a buff to allow them to be buffed when they stand on the enemy side, in the enemy territory. But they are not a team that you want to be stood anywhere near the enemy, is their problem. So there you go. So you needed to get a way to get your rerolls, because again, rerolls are the most important thing in the game. GW's made that very clear. They want every single faction to have access to rerolls, and very clearly the way you play a team, in case you don't know, is you find out how you get rerolls for that team, and then you make sure you get rerolls as much as you can anytime you want to be offensive. There you go. And that is step 1 of learning every team, to be clear. That is step 1. So if I were to be playing and learning Navy Breachers, the first thing I'd look at is, okay, how do I put down an attack order? Okay, how does that interact with how I want to play the game? Okay, here's how I get my rerolls. Here's how I already know how to play crit op, kill op, etc. Let's go for it. Cool. There you go. So those breachers need a buff. Warpcoven need a nerf. And again, many other teams need a nerf. All of these, in case you don't know, hey, I'm just going to throw this out there. We are in a crazy state. I haven't figured out how to put this into a clickbait title yet, but we are in a crazy state. If you can think of a clickbait title for what I'm about to say, please do. Let me know. There are 40 teams in the game. 10 of them, so a quarter of the teams, only 10 of them have above a 50% win rate. Everything else, the other 30 teams have a negative win rate. That's mad. Again, we shouldn't take these win rates too literally. I do agree with that. But if you just look at the stats and just take them as literal, which is fair, there's nothing wrong with that, we have crazy win rates. Like, if you're not playing one of these 10 teams, you are losing more games than you're winning. You are going 1-3 in a tournament instead of 3-1 in a tournament. Like, that's mad. That is legit bad. Yeah. But then, you know, there's a whole discussion there. So if you could think of a clickbait title for that, do let me know. Because I haven't quite figured it out yet. Yes, all YouTube videos have to have clickbait titles. If I just say that verbatim, nobody clicks on that video. Cool. Anyway, if you made it to the end of the video, let me know what you think needs to be changed very genuinely. Because I've only mentioned 3 things that everybody agrees needs to be changed here. But like, Sanctifiers, what do they need changed? Heretic Circle, what do they need changed? You know, Raveners, how are people feeling about them? They probably won't get a buff or a nerf in this. They say they'll wait till the next one with them, but how's it going? Anyway, how do we feel the new Tempestus Aquilons are doing? They got a big buff. I'm seeing people winning with them, but they're still at that 50.5% win rate, which, yes, is better than 30 other teams, so fair play. I guess I can't argue with that, can I? Anyway, if you made it to the end of the video, I'd like to give you a big triple hello. Wow, so wholesome. Truly, the wholesomeness knows no bounds. Thank you so much for watching to the end. That triple hello is just for you, my legends. Goodbye.